Okay, we're live, and I'm here at the local Steinway dealer tonight working on this Steinway D that they asked me to prep. It's going out, it's going to be loaded for delivery at the end of this week, and not knowing how much work I needed to put into it, I wanted to take a look at it tonight and see where we're at. And you're welcome to join with me here and just peek in and out and see what I might normally do when I'm opening a beautiful instrument like this for the first time. So I'm just going to get started, and I hope someone can join live. If not, then after the fact. Welcome. So the first thing we have to do is kind of unwrap it, but we want to leave some of the protective packing on for sure. This is like a giant shower cap, this packaging with this elastic. That's kind of cool. I love it. Look at this. Polished ebony. This is beautiful. Have to undo the cord on the prop stick here then, before I can even open the lid. This is exciting to open a brand new instrument like this. Top here. Oh, that's beautiful. I won't even touch this music desk. I don't need it for anything. Okay. Next steps here. I can't even play the keys. They're still locked up. We're gonna check what's going on. I mean, I know what's going on. It's locked up still. But we have to open it up. So this instrument is going into a pretty big space. It's a smaller town where it's going, but it's kind of it's a church gathering place. Also, community events will be hosted there, and so this piano will be used for that. The church agreed with the community to kind of share the piano, so they're getting this brand new D. And I service the university in that town, so I probably will be the one continuing to service it. So I'm excited. So here's the brand new action coming out. It's got a stick with some rubber bands on it, keeping it in place. Just pop those out, like so. Check the stick here, just a regular old piece of pine. Now the action's free to play. So the first thing I'm going to do is just play it and let the piano tell the story about where we're at with it. Well, maybe I'll do something else before I play it. I know I'm going to need to do some things. Look at this. I mean, you get climate differences from where the piano's made to where it's sent. And so if I pull up on the keys here, some of them are a little slow to come down. I mean, not all of them, but they're really, really close. And that's not going to necessarily affect the sound in a bad way. And the piano will still work with that amount of friction. It's not going to make a sticking key, that particular part that's got some friction on it. But I do want to make it consistent. So I am going to ease the keys a little bit there. So I might as well take off some parts and get ready to take off the stack and get ready to ease the keys. So we get tools out. I love this little baby wrench. It's great. And this is what it's good for, is to loosen these nuts right here. I forgot the most important part here. Make sure I log my work so I get paid in the end here. Let's see. Perfect. Working kind of late tonight. Had some doctor appointments and family doctor appointments, things like that earlier today. But that's one of the beauties about, being your own boss. You kind of make your own schedule. And I like working at night, actually. Early morning, night, I'll take it all. Very peaceful. So, the Phillips screwdriver for these guys. And for tonight, if anyone has any questions, maybe just more on the topic of what I'm doing on this piano. And I don't know how long I'm going to be here tonight on this piano. I may find that I want to harden the hammers with some lacquer, in which case I'll just apply the lacquer and head out, and that's all for tonight. But we'll see how far we get. The key up stop rail or the shipping rail. And also in the chat, maybe if you want to just put, if you feel like it, put who you are and what your background or interest is in tuning in, and we'll feel like we're kind of more in the same space that way. I'm going to remove all the screws right here. I'm going to remove all the screws that attach the hammers to the keys. Okay. And for a Steinway action, removing the screws, it doesn't really matter what order you remove them. I do have kind of an order how I like to put them back in, but it's not like some other pianos. All the screws are bored straight down, and so it doesn't so much affect it what order you put them in, you know. Hey. I threw a screw on the ground there. Sorry if the camera's going up and down a little bit. It's sitting on the action on my knee. So that's going to happen. You might wonder, well, why don't you pull out a table or a workbench or something? I could. But I'm so used to working like in a practice room setting or just at the piano in a home that I don't mind just working with it in the piano like this. Just kind of feels normal to me. These are all Phillips screws. Not that that's a big deal, but they've changed that from time to time on the Steinway pianos, just depending on what they're using. That was nice. There we go. It's nice to have a long screwdriver for this, and one that fits the screws very well so that they're not going to be damaged in any way. We can take these in and out over and over without damaging the threads of the head. So I didn't even play the piano first before tearing it because I don't think we're going to get like a big wow on a before and after or anything, especially with live streaming. I wouldn't expect the audio quality to be good enough to really hear what's going on and for these first few steps. So let's just go ahead and put things here. Now I'm going to remove the stack, set it here, and carefully push the action in a bit. And then I'm going to set the hammer stack out of my way for a moment. And I'm going to grab my key easing tools. In this case, I'm going to use a reamer, four-fluted reamer here. And the size of it is just about, what is it, 1 or 2 thousandths larger than the size of these pins. These pins are the balance rail pins, and they're round. So if I ream it this way, it's a very controlled way of not over easing the keys. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to check them. I can lift the key up and see if that shows. I don't know if that shows very well, but I put my right hand on the middle to hold it, or sorry, I put my right hand on the capstan here to simulate the weight of the parts, and I just lift up the front, and the key should fall down. And I want them all to kind of fall the same, and this one's a little sluggish, so I'm going to pull it, and I'm just going to ream the bottom just a little bit by turning that with my hand. Didn't quite get it out. There's some gunk in there. You can kind of feel if you leave some shavings in there, it's not going to be all the way there. Now that one falls. And, you know, some people say, well, you don't want to overdo that, but I know where we are in Utah with how dry it is, these holes get tighter, especially when we go into winter, and we are not in winter right now, right? So, and we've had some rainstorms to boot, so I know these are going to get tighter. I would rather not have to do this twice. So I may even just take the approach of reaming them all a little bit, but I don't know. This is prepped pretty well, actually. These keys are sized pretty well. So it's maybe just a few here and there. We'll see. Turn that reamer. Maybe somebody's used this tool. I know some people say, well, you only need to turn it a quarter turn and it's cut all the way around. So they might be alarmed and say, oh, you are overdoing it. But I promise I'm not. I know my reamer. I know how it cuts. And again, I know I'm really familiar with our climate and how these Steinway pianos are going to respond to the climate, because I do a lot of them. So I think we're okay. One critical thing, there's another tool that people will use to ease these balance rail holes, and it'll be flat.
it'll kind of be a wedge shaped, so that you put it in from the top, and the further down you go, it'll ease that hole more and more in a V shape. The danger with that tool is that you can overdo it to where the key has play like front to back, chunk, 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 and you don't want that for sure. I think a good snug fit, and when I say snug, not to the feel, but with just a fit with no play in it, in this hole from the pin to the hole, but consistent, is really good for the sound. I was always taught that if it's not too loose, that helps. And if it's not too loose and you don't have extra friction, that helps to not have an efficient transfer of energy from the energy we put into the key to the output on the hammer. Okay. I'm kind of going back over these just as I see, just working on consistency. You know, when I lift these keys off, you may not catch it, but I'm careful to try and lift them straight off so that they're not leaning front or back really extremely. I don't want to do any wear on the front or back of this hole. So it may not look like I'm being careful, but I am. So I kind of lift with the capstan here with my finger and my thumb that way. So this is just a new keyboard, new piano. This is just a great opportunity to be able to work on an instrument like this. I'm curious if anyone's here on the chat. Don't question the master. Welcome, Jeffrey. Thanks for joining. Jeffrey says, don't question the master. So listen to him. You know, I feel like, you know, like if you're a doctor, you'd have a medical practice to practice what you're doing, right? I feel that way a little bit about pianos. I'm always practicing piano craft, you know, and always open to a better way, or try to be open to a better way, right? So this, I did a series with a fellow who has a channel on YouTube to teach piano skills and advanced, from beginning to advanced, and he's been doing YouTube for a long time, and we did prepping a new Steinway series. It was a Model B, a 7-foot, and so you'll see the same step that I did in that one. And we go through, but that piano was kind of unique. We used a hardener on the hammers that I don't traditionally use, because I was going for a specific sound on that one. Little bit of based on the needs of feedback from Josh, and also just seeing what that hardener could do. So these are all dropping down nice as I go through. You know, there is a chance I'm not really loosening them very aggressively. So there is a chance that come January, February, when things have dried out a bit, that that this might have to be done again. You know, which brings up an interesting subject. How do holes in wood behave with different relative humidity? It may be counterintuitive. And I don't claim to have mastered all, but I do know this. The balance rail hole here and the bushings, the mortise here, when a piano comes from a wetter climate in general to Utah, these get tighter. And also the hole, these are key leads to weight the key, to balance the weight. The hole that those are pressed in gets loose when there's more humidity, and it gets tight when there's less. So if that's counterintuitive to you, I'm sorry, but that's the way it works. I had it explained to me that if you had a sheet of paper and you drew a circle on it and you set it in a tub of water, the entire piece will grow, including the diameter of the circle, right? And the circumference of it. And so theoretically, then if you picture the reverse process happening, it would also shrink. But I also feel like that's not universally going to be true with a hole in different piano parts, depending on the grain orientation of the wood, and the specific situation. So, I'm not eliminating the possibility that a hole could get looser, more loose, with drier. One thing when things dry out, one thing we do have to do is tighten screws on the action. But that to me is not the hole getting smaller or larger and more loose. To me, that's a result, or that comes because if the parts are made out of wood, the wood has shrunk, so its height is now shorter than where it was. So if you had a screw cinching that wood block down onto the rail, and now that wood is smaller, hence the screw now is more loose. If anyone really has some scientific knowledge on this or can add to the understanding of that, you're certainly welcome to comment on that. That would be great to know. I feel like it's maybe hard to do good science on a piano because there's so many different factors, and if you're a technician, the time to set up some type of experiment to kind of help increase your understanding is limited, And you could take two pianos of the same model side by side, and I feel like there's just so many variables there that you still have trouble, with coming to any definite conclusions on certain things. So I think that's one weakness kind of in our field, is there's not a lot of good science done, that's really controlled well. And I don't know. Luckily, I think in the physics world, a lot of things have been explained and studied pretty thoroughly, like what happens with the strings, the way they vibrate, the tuning, inharmonicity. If you're not familiar with inharmonicity, in front of harmonicity, Google that, look up the definition. It plays a huge role in why we have to tune pianos the way we do. So even some of these that are falling, I am loosening a little bit just so they fall with about the same immediateness as their neighbors. And as I mentioned before, if this balance rail is tight, it's not going to cause a malfunction in terms of a sticking key, what you think of as a sticking key where the note won't play more than once, or or it's so slow to respond that you can't play it repeatedly. This will not cause that, this friction area here. What I'm going to check after this is the front rail, and that is where you'll find the issues with sticking keys there. If I do a video in the future on sticking keys, I would probably post a link for you to go to that video right here. All right. We've got a smaller crowd live tonight. It's getting late maybe for some. Early for others around the world, I don't know. So this one just sticks up. See if I lift, it's just staying up, right? You may or may not notice that these keys on a 9-foot piano are really long. Big long lever. They need to reach further back into the action in order for the hammers to hit the appropriate spot on the strings to get a good tone. I've had it told to me, and I don't know if this is true, but in actuality, but I've had it explained that the design of a piano, if you're going to start designing a piano and drawing it out on paper, the very first thing that you would have is a line in space. And that line is where the hammers are meant to strike the strings, okay? And then everything else is built around that. So if that's true, on these 9-foot pianos, you need a long key to reach back in there a little further. These strings are so long, but I don't know. I think there's more to it than it's a little something else. Maybe someone who knows more than me on that can chime in. But I'm just gonna make it sound good and play good. I'll just work on that. How about that? I'll stick to what I know. I would love to be an engineer. As if I had the opportunity to go to school again, I would love to learn more about mechanical engineering and things, and learn more about the process of piano design. And but it's funny, we don't know. Like, I had no idea this career was even a viable career, as I was growing up thinking about what I wanted to do. So we don't always know what we want to do. And I don't regret studying music. It was a good start for me, and I was able to develop a lot of skills that I didn't have, and that that brings joy. Oh, Jeffrey says in the chat that the timing is great for him because he's just off work. I'm just getting started. He's just finishing. No, I actually started about 4:30 my time in the afternoon today, and so I'll probably go till about 12 or 1:30, depending on how much there is to do tonight on this. And call it good. And these reamers you can pick up at maybe other places too, but you can order them from McMaster-Carr. At least in the States, that's a supplier that we use a lot. And I think they're called a four-fluted reamer. I don't know if it'll focus on that very well, but the diameter of this one is 148 thousandths of an inch. And I always forget there's a common pin size for these balance rail pins that most you'd expect most balance rail pins to be that size. And I can't remember if the actual size is 146 or 145 or 147. because they do vary with, they have a tolerance within about a thousandth or so. So I can't remember what they're actually supposed to be. And that's just because I'm terrible at remembering numbers, but this reamer will work for all the Steinways I know, and some other pianos out there. But you can get reamers of different diameters. So in this case, let's see, if the pin size is 146, then this reamer is only 0.02 of an inch larger than that, and that tends to work. And you're not going to offend me, like if you know some fact that I'm kind of dancing around because I can't remember it, feel free to chime in. Okay, we're almost through the set now. And, when I put these keys on, I like to be careful also. I like to just kind of let it, I'm holding it straight, I let it find the hole, and I try and keep it straight as it kind of wiggles down into place to not do any violence to that hole. So if you're ever handling keys, taking them on and off, just treat them gently that way as best you can. So the keyboard will last a long time. Okay. Just about through. Now when I ream this, when I ease by reaming like this, I know it's, other than major weather changes, it's going to be pretty stable. I don't have to go through in multiple passes and check what I've done to make sure I didn't miss any, because this one was already really loose on the top, but not too loose. They did it just right. Excuse me. So I'm gonna put my reamer away here. Now we're gonna check the front rail fit. And this is the critical one. If that's too tight, it's game over for the key working right. And if you're talking about like weighting keys and everything, if you have friction somewhere, excess friction, it doesn't matter how you weighted the keys. The action's not going to feel good. So what I'm looking for is just, I'm steadying the middle part, this balance rail, the button, we call that the key button, just pushing it a little bit to one side and then wiggling quickly with my other hand on the front, quickly and soft-handedly. I don't know how to say that. So I feel a bump, a defined bump, which lets me know that there's a gap, okay, between the felts in this mortise and the key pin right here. That there's a little bit of a gap, and this pin is oblong. Okay, if you didn't know that already, the balance rail are circular. These are oval, and so they need to be rotated the right way. And what do these pins do? They just hold the key in place, if that's not apparent. And they give it, again, they help there be, they preserve the alignment of the key underneath the parts, and also provide an opportunity to have stumbling over my words, efficient transfer of energy. So the easing on this front rail is perfect. And I don't expect any less from these new Steinways. They do a good job prepping them that way, because they know that that's a real critical thing. Sometimes you'll have one that changes a little bit. This one's, it works and there's a bump, but it's just a little bit more narrow than the others. So I'm just going to give it a squeeze with my key easing pliers here. These are my favorite type of key easing pliers. They have like a pivoting thing in the front. And where can you get pliers like this? I think Chinese manufacturers have copied all the tools like this. And so if you went on eBay or Amazon or something, you would see something similar to this if you look through the selections. There's different styles. And this is my favorite because it helps to ease the thing uniformly, whether the key is in its up position or down position. It may just be because I'm used to this tool. I don't know, but it's a good one. So like I said, not much work to do here. These are great. And I'm loving what I'm feeling. Okay, so that's, the only other place you use keys, there's three points of contact. Let's see, do I like the sound of the Model D? Jeff wants to know in the chat. Jeffrey, I love the sound of a good Model D that is prepped well and voiced well. Does that answer it? I don't think you could say this is the sound of a Model D and have everyone understand, oh, yes, because they vary so much, and not because of production issues, just because of the versatility of the Steinways and how you can voice them differently. And then, you have some made in Hamburg, some made in New York with different types of hammers, and that increases, they can sound different. And they can do a lot of things, but I love the sound of a D. I would never complain if someone gave me a Model D. Okay, so I was going to say the only other place of friction that we would address at easing keys on a piano is this balance rail. But these, I know from experience, these are just right always. There's a little bit of wiggle, but there's a little bit of maybe gap between the pin and the felt where you could stick a piece of paper in there. But I can also feel that if those were way too tight, I would have issues with what I was doing before, where I lifted the key and let it drop. So I know that's not going to be an issue on a lot of upright pianos. This is a major issue, especially on the sharp keys, because they're such short keys. And if this is really tight, some Yamahas and other things won't repeat well unless that's eased significantly, and they come from the factory quite tight, from what I've seen. So, all right, I'm going to put. We've got the keys eased. I'm going to put my camera down and get the action back on, and we're going to take a listen and see where we're at. Yeah, if anyone's joining, you're welcome to. I guess I should look at you here. You're welcome to put comments in the chat about what we're doing here, or whatever, or just say hello and identify where you are and where you're coming from. That'd be great. So the trick to getting this back on, for me, is to stand it on end next to the piano, lift and pull the key frame out on my knee, then I grab it right here between the bass section and the tenor section, and then on the end I grab it on that metal bracket, and then I can look and match it right up with the hole down here on the treble side, and then the same on the bass. Okay, and it just fits right into place. I'm going to grab my screws. Ever are pulling an action out of a grand piano, in and out. Make sure when you get these are glide studs and they go all the way through. Make sure when you get to the front, once these drop screws here, these are very sharp screws that can nick your finish. Once they're past the danger part, give a little lift out and then set it on the lap or the workbench or whatever. Otherwise, you'll do damage to the wood underneath where these studs hit. Put my screws in place. Now,
Is the audio okay when I'm turned around, not facing the camera? Would someone kind of help me know that if I'm talking like this, can you hear me at all or well enough? That's not a very pro thing to ask. I realize that I'm not a pro from a production standpoint, so I'm just wondering if I'm spouting on stuff, if you catch any of it, or if I have to move this camera over here. Hello, Franciscus. Welcome. Thanks for saying hi. Okay, this is a quiz. Piano screws. You always want to, when the screw's in wood, you always want to turn, well, one way. Usually if you turn backwards, you can feel a pop, and that's where the screw matches up with the old threads, and then you can proceed to tighten. That'll make sure that the threading gets in the right place, and you don't cross thread the hole and to do damage to it or the screw over time. Because these screws will need to be removed and replaced hundreds of times over the life of the piano. I was saying I kind of have an order for putting in the screws when I put the action back in. Oh, hello, Ben Quinton. Welcome. My order for a Steinway, I just like to put the two front ends in first. The Steinway actually is located really well with wood blocks that they glue in and everything, but still I like to do that. I feel like it's a good idea. So I got the two corners screwed in, and then I have that back corner screwed in. I'm just going to screw in all the back screws now. Back threading first. Nice screw tip. Yeah, that's essential. You want to have a screwdriver that fits your screw correctly, or it's not going to damage it. You know, don't do a disservice to other people down the road by doing damage that will be a pain to repair. It's nice to be able to keep the original screws, the original holes intact as long as you can for a piano. And as far as the tightness, these need to be snug to where this well, you can't push it down any further, but not so hard that you're stripping the hole, of course. But these screws being secured properly and evenly is really key. It's kind of the foundation, right, of all the adjustments and the geometry. So you got to make sure that this, sometimes people will forget to screw in a screw and regulate the piano, and you're in trouble at that point. Okay, so screwing in screws here. All right, we're going to listen to how this piano sounds for the first time for me playing it. I do want to point out first, like I told you, I'm lifting and dropping. And for a G action, it helps to kind of have it, you know, this rail goes back at an angle towards the bass. This is the great distance here, then over here. So that can throw you off. If you line it up straight like this, it's not going to go in very well. You have to have it like this with the front of the keys is parallel to this piece, which we call the stretcher. Push that in, not too far back, just right to the lip. And I'm just going to set this down. Set this down. I'm not going to shove it down. And then I'm going to wiggle my left pedal and let these fall into place. Okay, now this is the position where it is currently set to locating the action front to back. I'm going to give a listen to the treble. So I've got issues here with the sostenuto already. just where it went to. Sostenuto, something's holding up the dampers here. I'll show you. Can you see that? Those dampers are ringing. Why are they ringing? Even when I pull the action out, guess what? It doesn't change it. You know why? Because the Sostenuto rail on these newer Steinways, even from New York, is mounted on the back of the piano. Okay, so I'm going to have to address that. Okay, let's see here. So I'll hold off on listening to Steinway. I'm going to address this issue first. I'm just going to take the action totally out. See what's going on. I'm going to pull this camera out of my thing here. This blade is a problem. Okay. For some reason, it's engaged already. So it's not coming down as far as it needs to. And I don't know why. So these are getting caught. As soon as they're played, they just get caught right onto that rail. Okay. Too dark in there to see, but they get caught on that blade, okay? So we're gonna, I'm gonna look underneath. I'm not gonna take the camera with me. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna look underneath and see if something obvious is wrong with the pedal. Okay. So I guarantee you that this was working, you know, when they sent it out. And it may just be a different situation, the way the lyre was set up, something. I don't see anything that's out of position and needs to be just popped into position. I'm gonna just, on the rod here, show you. On this rod up here is an adjusting nut, and I'm gonna lower that adjustment because again, I don't see, everything seems to be in place and tight. No screws that got loose or anything like that. So I'm just gonna loosen that and retighten it. I have to go get a couple wrenches. I'll be right back. Now, I have crescent wrenches in my kit, of course, but I carry the correct size for the Steinways in a kit that I use for the player pianos with Steinway Spurios, and so I just thought I would go grab those because it'd be easy. We need a 1/2 inch for this top portion and a 7/16 for the lock nut. So I'm gonna just loosen that lock nut, run it down, and then I'm gonna run this nut adjustment down,
And this whole lever up here, if you can see that at all, is now moving down, and it's making the it should be making the sostenuto blade come down where it needs to be out of the way. Okay, so here's a gap here. So I've got it detached completely from the lever right now. So I'm going to see if in that position it works. And see, that's just enough to kind of work. But I don't necessarily like what I'm seeing with the rail, how it's, where it's adjusted. I might tweak that a little bit. Let's see, I'm going to see how it works. I'm going to push the sustain pedal, then the sostenuto. It grabs all of them fine, and then I'm going to let go slowly, and it should be like rainfall. They should drop, and they do. And then when I push the pedal, it shouldn't be in the way. So it's working fine, better than fine. So even though this blade is activated a little differently than what I might normally set up, I'm not going to change it because it's doing its thing. So yep, okay. It does kind of tend to want to rest. It'd be nice if it snapped down all the way with a little more firmness. Let me see underneath if I can see anything. So I am seeing there's a spring down there that's supposed to help it return into position. And even when, you know, when the spring is acting a little too weak right now, so I do want to change my adjustments here, I believe. And as you can see, there's like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 different nuts for this one. And I haven't had to adjust these as much, so I got to kind of find my way as to what's the right way to do it. Okay, let's just do this downward. Okay, I'm going to loosen this locking nut here. Let's see if I can get you closer to see. I'm going to loosen this locking nut, and then I can turn this bottom one to either lower things like that. You see how it's lowering the blade away? Or I can turn it the other way and it'll raise the blade. Let's see if it works in this position currently. It does, and it returns. It still has a little bit of play there. Let's see. Okay, so I need to make an adjustment where I'm going to try and get it where the spring is more engaged, so it'll return to the same place each time, no matter how softly I release the pedal. But I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll just go back to where we were, lowering it to a safe distance. There, I'm comfortable now that the blade is going to lower away from things far enough to not have that problem again. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten my block nut. Against the adjust nut. There, now that that's locked in place. There, now it's all working still. We'll pull you back to check that out. So we push the pedal, we engage the blade with the middle pedal, then we let go of the right pedal, then slowly let go of the middle pedal, everything falls, the blade drops down. It's great, okay? I think we're fine. Now we'll try and play the piano. Let's see here. Camera angle? No, that's not bad. Hey, thanks for joining everyone. Everyone who's there on the live stream, thanks for joining me. If you want to just say hi in the chat, that'd be great. Say where you're from, whatever, or maybe not. Hey. Yeah, I'm just going to set this here, wiggle it with my left foot. Now we're going to listen. Where's the camera? We're going to listen to the piano now where it's at. Okay. Okay, I want to show you something else. These are all having to do with pedal adjustments, notice. So the things that I'm finding first off. And so for whatever reason, you know, sometimes the lyre, when it gets put in, isn't the same. But look, where this is at rest, okay, this is where the damper's at rest. And I'm using my fingernail so I don't stay in the string. And I push down, and the damper head doesn't follow the string, okay? If I lift with the key, the damper doesn't lift until the hammer's halfway up. So it's not the key, it's the pedal. So we just need to adjust the damper pedal. No big deal. No big deal. So, damper pedal's here on this side. So basically, this needs to be lower. That's what we're dealing with. So I'm going to get my 1/2-inch wrench and 1/2 inch, 1 7/16 inch. And I'm just going to loosen the lock nut, lower it, then lower this adjusting nut until I should feel about this much, which is down here, it's about 4 millimeters, where it's not doing anything. It's not lifting the dampers yet. And then it starts to lift it. So I like that where it's at. Maybe a little less. Maybe a little less, right? Right here. But it feels good. The dampers feel good. Again, it's just a pedal adjustment. Maybe a common thing, you know, with setting up a piano for the first time. All right. I've tightened that in place. Oh, and I forgot to tighten the sostenuto after we put it where we wanted it. So I'm going to do that. I need to raise it just to where it's going to lift the sostenuto. Then I'm going to lock that in place. Okay. And then this one, we might as well check the left pedal, right? Just in case, because all the other pedals weren't correct. I'm just going to loosen it. Try to loosen it. That was tight. Okay. And then I'm going to run the nut down to make sure it's not. Oh, see, it was actually moving the action out of place. Okay, so for whatever reason, between the takedown of this piano and setting it up again, the pedal adjustments change. There now, there's a little bit of free play before it's starting to move the action. This pedal, if you don't know, it moves the whole keyboard over. So it will change where the hammers hit the strings, which if we just started prepping the piano before doing this, big mistake. Then everything's out of alignment, okay? So I'm gonna put this just to where I can feel a little bit of pressure, where it's touching the action but not changing its position. Then I'm gonna retighten this. Okay. And most pianos are similar to this. It doesn't matter that it's a Steinway D. They're all going to be like that for the pedals for the most part, where they're adjustable and similar problems. Now, let's look at this. Check this out now. So now, when I push down the string, watch the damper head. It's going to follow. There, you see it moving now with the string. Now it'll actually work, okay? So let's get this here where we want to see. Right. Okay, hopefully that's a good spot for the camera. It's a little wonky, isn't it? Let's see. A little better? Okay, let's just play the piano and hear how it sounds a little bit now. There, now that shuts off a lot faster. A big 9-foot piano, you're still going to have some over ring, but now, so the whole action was over a little bit. So it's like we were pushing the soft pedal down, and that was the original position, which made these weaker. And I thought, oh, that's really weak. But now when I let go, okay, here's before. Here's after. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear that in this setting with that, with not as good of audio, but it's a lot more full and a lot more punchy. So the character of this piano is nice. It's a very clean sound. It's got a lot of power. In this room, if I know because I've worked in this room a lot, it's going to sound a little smaller in this room than it will in a better performance hall or in a home, certainly. But still, it sounds pretty big in here, right? So it's actually pretty good. So I've got a little bit of an issue in the bass here where, for whatever reason, when I push the shift pedal, the una corda pedal, these notes are getting caught. And I think they're getting caught on the back action parts, the damper underlever. I'm going to pull it out a little bit and just see what happens. I'm holding it out farther and moving the pedal. And then it's fine. So I may want to move the action further this way in the base, in this case. If that's even a possibility. Let's see here. I want to see how far out I have to move it to make it work. Hardly at all. So I imagine it worked fine, and then just a subtle change, and now it's changed a little bit, okay? So I need to get into this cheek block and see if I can move things a little bit. I need an Allen wrench. I'm gonna go get another tool bag. Get an Allen wrench. Okay. So with the right sized wrench, let's see what size we need. I think maybe a 3mm, looks like. Stick it in here and loosen this. I'm not as familiar with these newer adjustments that they have on the New York Steinways now. They have these adjustments for the blocks that can be adjusted in several different ways with screws, but it's a newer thing for me, so I'm just kind of learning it. So, you know, if you don't know how to work something, take it apart, figure it out, right? No, I've had someone show me before, but I just haven't had to move them much. So I'm going to move this a little bit so the action will be just a little bit closer towards the front. Put this plate back in place. I know I'm not showing this up to you very up close, but I apologize for that. But if you want to see it, you know, up close, if it really interests you, just let me know. But essentially, I'm just making the adjustment further out that way. Okay. Tighten this back up, putting pressure on there. So this screw will allow things to be if I understand correctly, it'll allow me to push down on this pin on the action so that it doesn't knock on the end, but it just holds it in the right spot, okay? So that's the idea with this. But I need to loosen these two screws a little bit so that this can move up and down. And then when I turn this from the front, it will cinch this down or up on the action. And that's what I'm going to do. Just a little bit loose so that it's free to move. So if I run this screw in, it's going to push this metal piece up and push the brass plate down against the action. It no longer hangs up on those dampers back there. But there's a knob, okay? I want to screw this down. That's a little bit of a knob, right? So now I'm going to stick my wrench in there and tighten that. There. Now the knock went away, okay? A little bit. And if I loosen, the test is if I loosen this bottom screw a little bit, I have a knock. Then I tighten it, no knock. So it's not too much pressure, just the right amount of pressure, and it's not hanging up back there on those dampers anymore. But now I need to take it off and secure those two screws on the plate in that position, which I wish I didn't have to do, and maybe someone can correct me if that doesn't need to happen. But my understanding is I now need to cinch these two screws. These two screws I need to cinch down now to lock this in place now that I've run this to the proper down bearing. Okay, I'm just kind of listening to the sound, judging it, kind of looking at things here. I'm going to look at the hammer alignment a little bit. I'm lifting the hammer up to the strings to see how consistent it is. It's very, very consistent. They've done an excellent job aligning the hammers where they wanted to. And which I would expect. You know, you would expect that, right, on a very expensive, high quality piano, and sure enough. Okay. Sorry, I'm having tripod issues here. I've moved this thing around too much. Okay, I'm just checking the hammer alignment up here. Now, remember, if you were here a minute ago, the unicorda pedal was moving the action over to the treble side a little bit, and so it would have looked like these hammers were misaligned. And if I started realigning them, I would have caused myself a lot more work, much more work to the end result here. But all is well once we adjusted the pedals. Now the tone to me is it's bright. It's not too muted. It's very even. It's nice. The one thing that it doesn't have is it's not very monstrosic. It's not very monstrous, okay? It's plenty bright. It's plenty bright. But I know that if I put hardener, now this is where some people will disagree. If I soak hardener into the core of these hammers more, it'll create more body and presence, and it'll make it easier on the keys to play fortissimo. Okay. And then will it be too bright? Well, that's easy to change how bright it is from there. But I think it'll also have a little more color and a little more sustain, a feeling of sustain, if these hammers are a little more hard in the core and a little more consolidated tone. This tone is very beautiful, very even. It's not too mellow. I just don't think it's going to be very exciting as a piano, unless we make it that way. And so we're going to do that. So for this, I am going to get out a table to put the action on, and I'm going to put a hardener in the hammer next. So basically, I mean, everything's great on this piano. A few adjustments of the pedals, little key easing. It's really great. The action we might be able to make it a little more responsive, but the tone will actually help that perception. And so really, this is not a big difference. I just want to change the color of the tone a little bit. Pull it out on the table here. I'll bring you with me. You can see how we do this here. We'll start over here in the bass. Okay. And you've probably seen videos like this if you've watched much piano stuff. You've probably seen similar things. Except people are, in general, people are a little more conservative with how much hardener they put. I can tell there's already hardener in the hammer. They're a little yellow. They're really hard, actually. But at the top, as I get towards the top, they're not. They're quite soft. And so we're just going to gain a little bit more oomph. I shouldn't say a little bit more. It's going to change. It'll make it a much more exciting piano. Okay. So I'm going to take some lacquer that's already been pre-mixed. And okay. I'm just going to get this into the bottle, into my needle bottle here. So I like to use these little Dixie cups, maybe a double one, so it doesn't leak through. This is lacquer thinned with lacquer thinner. Okay. So I can make it into a pour spout there. Just pour it right in. And that will probably be enough. We'll see. That's another reason why it's good to do this at night. I can leave it back here and no one will notice or won't bother. The smell won't bother them as much, you know. I'm going to get a stool from the other direction and apply this. Okay. I'm going to get a bench over there. So how the hammer absorbs this lacquer will tell me a lot about how much I need to put in. See, it just goes straight down. It soaked it in really quickly, and it made a straight line that was going down. That shows me that this is that there was room to have these hammers be harder for the tone that I want. So it's drinking up the lacquer pretty good here. And I realize very fully that what I'm doing here is somewhat controversial among technicians and piano manufacturers. But I'm personally not worried about the result. Well, I'm always worried about the result when I work on a 9-foot piano, I guess, but but I'm pretty confident about where it's going to end up and what kind of piano it's going to be in the end. So if you can see that, I'm letting it drink all the way until it about hits the wood molding. And some people say, well, why don't you put it in from the side, or, you know, don't put it on the top. I'm not worried about, it's not going to make the top too hard or anything. This, with lacquer thinner, it's going to absorb and wick down into the center of the mass here. So like even on the top already, like, you know, you can see a little bit of a lighter outline around the top surface, and it's darker down here. It's already wicking in, okay? this will take a long time to dry. So that's the only hesitancy with, having to do something like this. You have to have enough time. But that's why I'm starting a little earlier in the week here. I know I have until Thursday or Friday, I think, on this one. So plenty of time. Let's see how that looks in the camera here, if you can see. Hopefully I'm not blocking you, what you're seeing there. Oh, I'm totally blocking it, aren't I? Okay, here we go. Move the camera back, and I'm going to do this for the whole set. I'm still paying attention how it absorbs the lacquer. So far, it absorbs it really quickly. Some people would say, oh, you're ruining the piano. But I don't think those people are voicing many pianos either, that when they say that. So this decision is not just like my personal preference. This comes from having serviced pianos in performance venues with some of the top pianists of the world coming through and seeing which pianos they select and which pianos they don't select, and paying attention to the characteristics of the tone of that and why that is. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it for sure, but I guess I'm trying to defend why I'm doing this, but I don't think I really need to. So because these are drinking it so quickly, if a hammer was already really hard, the lacquer wouldn't penetrate in the center so quickly. It would go around the edges and come and run down the sides. But because it's penetrating quickly, it's taking a lot of lacquer, so I'm probably going to have to refill the bottle about halfway through here. Yeah, these are still just drinking it up. This is this area of the piano tends to be inherently strong. Doesn't require a lot usually. And some people might wonder, why are you doing the whole set? Like, aren't there certain notes that need to be brought out or others? But I'm trying to come up with a similar character across the whole instrument. And I think with the way these hammers are right now, this will provide a good foundation. From there, I can add small portions if I need to here or there, but my guess is I won't. I'll probably just be shaping the hammers and then needling them, because they'll be, a little stronger than where I want to end up, and then I'll rein it back with needling. Okay. This is the most inherently weak part of the piano right here where I am, in about the almost the sixth. Well, I'm at C6 right now. That's C sharp right here. So, and these are still drinking the lacquer. Usually the hammers towards the treble need to be a little harder. than the hammers lower down in order to bring out a similar quality and intensity of sound to match what's going on down below. So my guess is that these had an initial hardening, a little bit hardener maybe in them, and then someone's gone through in building the piano and hardened the very tops of the hammers a little bit, and they created more sound with brightness and evening. Oh, see, now these are a lot harder now at the very top, which I would expect. Let me see if I can capture this. Let's see which. Okay, let me see how close I can get to this. So you might be able to see. Okay. It's not very close. I'm going to get you even closer here. Okay, you got a front row seat to the hammer show. And okay, now what I noticed is when I started putting in these, it doesn't run straight down, it makes an arc shape around the edges. So that shows me that these treble hammers have probably been hardened more after the initial production of the hammers than the rest of the piano, which makes sense. They were voicing it. So it's been voiced very carefully. Like I told you, it had a beautiful tone. I mean, it was clean tone. It was very even. And I just knocked your camera over. Let me see if I can fix that for you. Okay. There we go. But it just wasn't as dynamic in body. And it's hard to put words to describe tone, I feel like. And it's not just tone, it's the response to the playing, right? How the tone changes when you try and make a musical gesture or change the dynamics. Okay? I'm letting this go a little deeper down. Okay, so I'm going to leave that overnight, and I'll probably work on this piano again tomorrow. I'm not sure what time, but I'll keep working on it this week. And tomorrow, once these are dry enough, I'm going to file the hammers with sandpaper, restore the shape, get they're shaped really well. It's not going to take much. And then I'm going to start working on regulating and voicing the piano from there. So hopefully you can join me. Just keep a lookout for when we go live. Thanks. Bye.